name is Shirley Carduck, and last year, it was on April 22nd, 2014, I was at the hospital at a meeting and I had left. I worked there. It was around 10 in the morning and I was to meet a friend for breakfast. And as I was leaving the hospital, instead of going right like I normally would, I turned left for some unknown reason. But I kept going, and as I came up to the entrance of the hospital where the intersection is, there were cars and trucks on both sides of the road. And I didn't see an accident or anything, but I saw people running over to the edge of the road and looking down the embankment. So I pulled over just to see if I could help. And when I looked over the edge, there was a man in a truck had gone down over the embankment, and the men that were standing down there near the truck were yelling that he's not breathing. So I ran down, and this gentleman was sitting in his truck, very purple, ghastly color, wasn't breathing, had no pulse. So the gentleman helped me get him out of the truck, and we got him on the ground, and I started CPR, hands-only CPR. And it was very grueling. I felt like I was doing CPR for 15, 20 minutes, it seemed like, and I asked God for strength to continue, and I really felt the strength going into my body and continued on with the CPR. It seemed like maybe really a half an hour. It just seemed like it was going on forever, and I yelled for someone. There were people looking down watching, and I asked if anybody could help, if they knew CPR, and nobody came. So I continued CPR and thought I just couldn't go another minute, and was just wondering where the ambulance was because the hospital was just a few hundred yards up the street. But someone that worked at the hospital came running down the hill and said, "Shirley, I can help," and he continued CPR. A police officer showed up with an AED. We hooked him up and shocked the patient and continued CPR. And then the paramedics finally arrived. I got a phone call from the hospital stating that the gentleman was alive and breathing on his own, and I just lost it because I could not believe that this man, who was just as purple when I left as when I started, I just didn't think that he was going to make it. I thought he was dead when I left. So it was a big surprise, a nice surprise. I actually was his nurse in the hospital a few days later. He had suffered a heart attack and passed out behind the wheel, and that's when the accident occurred. A few weeks ago I did meet up with him, and he is alive and doing great. He's back to work. He's home with his family. Things are going really well for him. And even though I, as a critical care nurse, helped in saving lives over the last 30, 35 years, I was always in a hospital with a lot of people around, doctors, nurses, the IV team. We have medicines and machines that can keep people alive, but this was out on my own, and all I had were my hands. If you could just learn one thing, or if we could all just learn one thing from this, is hands-only CPR really does work. Even though the person's not breathing and you're not giving them mouth to mouth, you're circulating the blood, which still has a lot of oxygen in it. So we just have to deliver that oxygen to the brain. So everybody should learn CPR because someday you may need to use it on a loved one.